Well, hello there, friends. Okay. Oh boy, we are on chapter 20. The last thing that happened. I'd love to help, said Rosie. It's good to have an engineer for a neighbor, said Mrs. Lou. Rosie smiled back. It is indeed. Chapter 20. Oh, goodness. Things to paint with. And I'll see if you can read those on your own first. It says wide, thick, square, fan, toothbrush, pointy, pampas grass, a stick, sponge on a stick, a finger. The parking lot was full of artists and their families. The McAllister sisters and Marion borrowed the librarian's microphone and sang to the crowd while the artists painted. There was dancing and laughing. Everyone was having a great time, especially June. She grinned as she swished her arms left and right and up and down over the canvas. The paint-a-palooza was working like a charm. Then June reached up and, "Ouch! Ouch!" she cried. "Double ouch!" Her face wrinkled up in pain. "What's wrong?" asked Iggy. "I have to stop," said June. "My wrists hurt." Rosie helped June take off the gloves. She looked at them sadly. The paint-a-palooza had worked, but it still didn't help June. The whole adventure was a flop. Rosie frowned, but June grinned. Then June chuckled. Then she laughed out loud. Rosie was shocked. "What's funny?" she asked. "You have to quit painting." "Who's quitting?" asked June. "Maybe I can't paint, but you all can." "But if we paint, then you can't win the contest," said Rosie. "Oh, Rosie," June said softly, "don't you see? I've already won. This is the most fun I've had in years." Rosie smiled. Iggy and Ada cheered. The Riveters cheered too. "Come on, everyone. Let's finish the painting together," June cried. They all rubbed, it says June cried, so how would I read that? "Come on, everyone, let's finish the painting together," June cried. They all grabbed paintbrushes and pampas stalks and got painting. When they were done, they stood back and admired the canvas. "Home, sweet home," said June. "It's perfect." Chapter 21, and it has here a list of favorite valves. Valves. Ball valve, that's number 1. 2, butterfly valve. 3, clapper valve. 4, choke valve. 5, gate valve. 6, needle valve. 7, poppet valve. Ooh, I like that word, poppet. Ooh, I just thought of something. Okay. Chapter 21. Suddenly, Boss slapped her hand on the arm of her wheelchair, and the Riveters grew silent. Boss motioned for Mrs. Lou and the Riveters to gather around her. Rosie, Ada, and Iggy stood by the canvas. "What's going on?" Ada asked. "I don't know," said Rosie, "but I think it's serious." The Riveters huddled. They whispered to one another and took turns glancing at the kids. Ooh, friends, what do you think is going on? Here's a picture of them whispering and glancing at the kids. Finally, the huddle broke apart and Boss wheeled to the canvas. The Riveters stood silently behind her. Boss spoke in a clear, strong voice. "I speak for us all, including our dear Agnes," she said. Agnes Lou smiled and put a hand on Boss's shoulder. "We are the Riveters," said Boss. "We do our part. We always have and we always will. It's who we are." The women smiled proudly. "That means taking care of one another," said Boss. "That's what makes us a family." June stepped forward. "Rosie, Ada, and Iggy," she said, "you did something important when you made that contraption. You helped someone you didn't even know. You did your part." "You did indeed," said Boss, "and today we declare that you are honorary Riveters." Betty, Letty, and Hetty McAllister stepped forward. "We further declare that our home is now officially your home too," they said. "That includes all the singing and dancing you can handle." "We can handle a lot of dancing," said Iggy. "Zowie!" said Ada. "Thank you," said Rosie. 3 cheers for Iggy and Ada. 3 cheers for Rosie Revere. 3 cheers for the Questioneers. Chapter 22. Oh, sweet, sweet illustration. It says home. I bet you can tell what else that says. A place where there is love, and it's a noun. That's a part of speech. You'll learn about parts of speech another time. Chapter 22. That night, Rosie packed her engineer's stash under the bed as she did every night. She climbed the covers and looked around her room. She loved her house, but what made it her home were Gizmo and her aunts and uncles, her friends and her neighbors, and now the Riveters. They were all her family. She thought about the raucous Riveters and Mrs. Lou. They lived in many houses, but their home was really anywhere they were together. They were amazing women, and Rosie was proud to know them and even prouder to be an honorary Riveter. Rosie made a final note in her engineer's journal. She washed Gizmo goodnight. Tired, but very happy, Rosie Revere drifted to sleep and dreamed the bold dreams of a great engineer. And on this page, it's got a list. It says Paint-A-Palooza 6, Wretched Wreck. Paint-A-Palooza 7, Messy Misadventure. Paint-A-Palooza 8, Foolhardy Flop. Paint-A-Palooza 9, Dorky Dud, and then she crossed out Futile Fiasco. And finally, A Happy Homecoming. All that alliteration, my friends. Wretched Wreck. Messy Misadventure. Oh, this is really cool. Okay, so here it says Ode to a Valve. An ode is a kind of poem. It's like almost like a love, when you're loving and honoring someone and you want to like dedicate that poem to them, to that person or that creature. This is an ode to a valve. It says toilet fill valve, heart valve, tire valve. What is a valve? What does it do? It's simply a gate that lets fluids go through, a tube or a hose or a pipe or a vein, and keeps them from flowing backward again. There are valves in your toilet, valves in your heart, valves in your tires, and that's just a start. So poo-poo to those who say no need to gush. Instead say hooray the next time you flush. That's very clever. And then my friends, at the end, okay, it says about valves. So the story itself is over, but now you're learning some of the more scientific and engineering pieces. If you blow up a balloon and then let go, the air inside the balloon will come out. If you blow up a beach ball and then let it go, the air inside will not come out. Why not? A tiny flap of plastic inside the beach ball blocks the hole and keeps the air contained. This mechanism is a very simple valve. There are many kinds of valves, but they all do the same thing. They control the flow of liquid or gas through a tube or pipe. When you turn on the faucet, a valve opens and lets water flow through. Your stove and grill have valves that control the release of gas to the burners. Even your toilet has valves that let water fill the tank so you can flush when you need to. That is important. Are there valves in your bike, car, a trumpet? What about in your body? The answer is yes. Your body has over 50 valves that keep fluids flowing in the right direction. Some valves in your body are rings of muscles that contract. Others are flaps of tissue that block blood from flowing backward into your heart. Be glad you have valves. And then here, oh, there's a whole bunch of other stuff I might need to make. Well, I can do it. About the Riveters. During World War II, millions of women in the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and other allied nations worked to provide the food and equipment needed for the war effort. Some worked on farms, others worked in businesses and factories. In the United States, these factory-working women were represented by Rosie the Riveter, the scarf-wearing character whose slogan was, "We can do it." Riveters used metal rods to connect sheets of metal. Riveters and other workers built ships, airplanes, tanks, and jeeps. They also made guns and bullets. American factories were open every day and every night, and the workers made more than 300,000, woo, friends, 300,000 aircraft, 86,000 tanks, and 2 million army trucks during World War II. Women began working in the war production factories after many men left to fight in Europe, Africa, and Asia. The jobs paid well. 18 million women worked in the U.S. war effort. Most of these women were poor and held low-paying jobs before the war. About 6 million of these women were housewives who had not worked outside the home before. Having so many women at work in industry and production was a big change for America. Factory work was difficult and dangerous. Women were paid less than the men who had worked the same jobs, and women of color were paid even less than white women. They also faced racism on the job and were often given more dangerous tasks. This is reminding me so much of what we talked about in our Great Changers unit about unfair rules and unfair laws. The hard work of the riveters helped the Allies win World War II. When the war ended, many factories closed. Others gave the women's jobs back to men after the men came home from the war. Even so, America now knew that women could do all kinds of jobs. Rosie the Riveter and her real-life counterparts made a big difference during the war and helped to shape the civil rights movement and the continuing fight for equal rights for women that followed. And at the very end, I love all these separate little parts they have at the end. Think about this. Think of all the things you have done in your life. Now you can imagine all you will do by the time you are as old as great-great-aunt Rose, Bernice, or Boss. Oh, it says, now can you imagine all you will do by the time you are as old as great-great-aunt Rose, Bernice, or Boss? You will have so many interesting stories to tell. Think about the older people in your life and in your town. Take time to ask them about their stories. Who knows? Maybe one of them was a Rosie the Riveter or knew someone who was. And here it says, Great-Great-Aunt Rose made airplanes a long time ago. Bernice traveled all around the world. Boss was born in a different country. And here, about the author, Andrea Beatty lives outside Chicago, Illinois, and the illustrator lives in London. When he's not drawing, he likes to make hats. And here's their illustration of that. Friends, it has been a pleasure reading this book with you. I will have one more book for you. Well, maybe two. Let's see. Today's Wednesday, so we'll do that we'll have a book for some reading for Thursday and some for Friday. Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed that series. I'm going to look for more. Thanks for listening. Bye.